The Year 8s at Stockwood Park Academy in Luton are about to get a lesson in hate. How to recognise it, how to reject it, and how to protect themselves from those who promote it.
I want to start off straight away with what you see on screen and what you can hear. Who can just raise their hands very quickly and tell me what's happening up there? Yes, sir. Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike. Call of Duty. Who said that? Who said Call of Duty? Okay. Thank you.
Irfan Chisti is a Home Office approved intervention provider. He's also an Imam. He travels from school to school delivering these sessions, raising awareness of extremism and radicalisation.
This is our Call of Duty. And hey, that word there, respawn, who said it over here? Right? Look what they're saying. We will respawn in Jannah. Who's going to tell me what that is? Heaven. Thank you so much, sir.
This assembly is part of a wider programme called Prevent, the government's strategy to tackle radicalisation and identify people, mainly the young, at risk of being drawn to violent extremism.
A terror organisation, their propaganda is pretty loud, it's pretty much out there. And that's the kind of message they're putting out.
Prevent is one of the 4 strands of the government's counter-terrorism strategy, known as Contest. Created by the Labour government, its remit was widened by the coalition in 2011. Teachers are now on the front line of this. 2 years ago, Prevent became a legal duty for schools and colleges. They're now obliged to show due regard to the need to prevent people from being drawn into terrorism. This means spotting pupils vulnerable to radicalisation and referring them to specialist support.
We're now going to hear a story based on true events of a student who was vulnerable to radicalisation.
You have 2 choices to work with. One is where a female student has the potential to be drawn to Islamist terrorism. The other follows a boy who is seemingly being drawn into the ideology of the far right.
So how are schools getting on with Prevent becoming a legal duty? We have obtained the first detailed report in how teachers are adapting and what they think of it.
According to the research we've seen, teachers by and large accept the Prevent duty, but there are concerns. Does it work, and is it stigmatising young Muslims?
Staff were sceptical as to whether the duty would identify genuine cases of young people that were being drawn into terrorism. They thought such young people were more likely to be able to hide what they were doing, so they didn't think that the duty itself would necessarily be able to identify those people.
In Luton, these concerns are felt across broad sections of the Muslim community. That's despite more than 1/3 of Prevent referrals nationwide relating to far-right extremism. Atik Malik believes children who are the subject of Prevent referrals can end up on watch lists. He also thinks it's a big ask for teachers.
Fact is, no teacher has gone into teaching industry with the intention of policing, because that's what Prevent is policing a community. And teachers are being asked to do a job which they've never been trained to do. The impact Prevent has on Muslim boys and girls is that it alienates them from the community. It makes them into a suspect community. It adds to the narrative that prevails and encourages discrimination, hate crime, Islamophobia. And from that can only create more hate, more resentment and disconnect from the wider community.
I think training is a really important part of what we do as professionals in education. And our staff are very well trained. They're trained by the Prevent team and actually by our own staff who are trained up to deliver those sessions. And that means staff are really skilled at spotting early signs, things that might seem reasonably inconsequential, but actually, when they add up, could be something really major.
But for the government, Prevent remains the central plank of their anti-radicalisation strategy. There has been talk it will be relaunched or even rebranded, though we've been told more likely there will be extra funding.
I don't hang up on the word prevent because I know at the heart of this it's about safeguarding, and that's the key message for everyone. And the proof is the fact that actually in many areas we're seeing far right sometimes outstrips referrals from the Muslim communities because actually people are vulnerable to being groomed no matter who they are and what their background.
Since Pakistan have done pretty well recently in the cricket.
Back at Stockwood Park Academy, Irfan is wrapping up the assembly. Luton's what's known as a prevent priority area. And the school is located in the part of town where the English Defence League was founded. So how did the audience respond to today's session?
Like, a lot of my friends got discrimination after a lot of the attacks, and that was quite upsetting to me. But now the fact that I know that it's, that I can actually tell these people that that is not what they stand for as people. It's like not their values that those people are going out and showing. It's actually like quite the opposite.
It teaches us about how the world around us, like what happens, and how stupid people can be, in the sense that, like, it shows that they say they're Muslims, they say that their religion, it's their religion, but their religion shows that they should do the opposite of what they do.
The prevent duty remains a polarising issue, and as the threat level in the UK stays that severe, the government insists it's still our best bet to keep vulnerable minds from being preyed upon.
It's estimated over half of all referrals to prevent are about under 18s, which is thought to account for around 2,000 young people, the youngest of which was 4. We can speak now to Atiq Malik, who's a lawyer based in Luton and member of Prevent Watch. He has represented families caught up in the prevent process. And also with us, Irfan Chisti, who you saw in that film. He's a prevent practitioner, co-founder of Me and You Education, and Imam of Manchester Central Mosque. He is in our Salford studio. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Mr. Malik, first of all, this report that we've seen suggests there's no evidence of widespread resistance to prevent by teachers, and yet significant concerns amongst responders about the stigmatisation of Muslim students. How much is that a problem for you?
Well, before I start, if I can just mention, one of the cases that I've dealt with, the youngest child to be referred to prevent was actually 3.
Really?
Yeah, it's really shocking.
Without naming names and giving private family details, what was the referral about with a 3-year-old?
With the 3-year-old drew a picture of his father cutting a cucumber, and obviously because the child's only 3 years old, could not pronounce properly what the word cucumber was, and was referred to prevent because of that. It was a very, very shocking story. It was known as the cucumber case and was widely reported on in the media, both
So what did they think the child was saying?
They thought the child was saying cooker bomb.
Cooker bomb?
Cooker bomb.
Right.
So this
is true?
This is true. I dealt with this myself. It was widely reported in both mainstream media in the UK and internationally, because it's caused so much shock as to when does it prevent duty start or stop. Are we going to go for 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds? How far gone is this?
And do you think that is prevents failing, or an individual teacher's failing?
I would never criticise any teachers. We have to look at what the current situation in this country is. Our public services are bursting at the seams. Our teachers, our NHS departments, the police department, they're not getting the funding that they should.
The teachers are not complaining about this duty. There is no, quote, no widespread resistance to prevent by teachers.
Well, that's shocking because to hear that, because the National Union of Teachers has repeatedly voiced concerns, asked for the scrapping of the prevent duty, asking for independent review of the prevent regime in its entirety. And another interesting point is this. The United Nations Special Rapporteur has also published reports, which has been published by the United Nations the Human Rights Commission, and what that says is that the prevent duty is not only inherently flawed, not only does it fail to meet its objectives, but it adds to the problem that it's trying to resolve.
Okay,
and it goes one step further, if I may. It says that it actually goes against the grain of human rights and democracy.
All right, well, let's bring in Irfan Chisti on that point. Goes against the grain of human rights and democracy. How do you respond to what Mr. Malik is saying?
Yeah, I mean, you saw us in the clip there how we deal with this on the ground level with students and also staff. And I think actually, to be honest, it's very unhelpful for Mr. Malik just to quote one example of how actually from the case that I know about there, it was not actually dealt with in the proper procedures that it should have been done. And so, that's just an unhelpful kind of quotation of one, flawed response. The key issue in this whole agenda is that Prevent deals with situations as a safeguarding duty, just as it deals with any other safeguarding issue. And we've been working now with the school sector and education sector for a number of years, and overwhelmingly the response, as you caught from that report as well, and I'm speaking to you as a practitioner on the ground, speaking to teachers, the confidence that they now have, because we are using the word safeguarding. I'm an ex-teacher myself, and safeguarding is bread and butter for people. People understand that if there is harm, regardless of what type of harm, then teachers have a duty to safeguard and to deal with that in the appropriate manner.
All right, one final point to you, Mr. Malik. Ben Wallace, Security Minister, 150 people, we don't know their ages, 150 people have been dissuaded from fighting in Syria. You must welcome that.
I'm glad you raised that point. In actual fact, Amber Rudd said it was 150 people stopped from travelling to Syria. Now, this figure doesn't make any sense, and I'll tell you why. If someone's preparing to travel to Syria to fight against ISIS, which is what Amber Rudd said...
we can argue about the figures. It might be 10, it might be 150, it might be... You must welcome the fact that they have been dissuaded from travelling.
This is the point. If they have been dissuaded, that's actually a criminal act. That's a preparatory act of terrorism. Yeah. Now, looking at the figures, they said it's 150 people stopped committing these offences. It's an offence that's been committed over the last year. Now, looking at the figures, in the whole of England, over the last year, only 61 people have been convicted of terrorism. Now, terrorism, in that sense, includes preparing to go to another country, includes maybe sending money to somebody, includes going on the internet looking how to make a bomb. So if only 60 people in the whole of the country last year were convicted of terrorism-related acts, where is 150 figure come from? Is it a myth? Is it another Tory lie that was told in elections? Okay, what is going on?
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Thank you both.